Alright, so today we're going to have a little bit of fun. Today we're going to work with ZBrush Core Mini, and we're going to work with Thingiverse. We're going to combine the two, and we're going to make a little tabletop miniature of some 3D crystals, some crystal shapes for 3D miniatures. So today we got to start off with a few components that we got to compile together. So ZBrush Core, we're going to go ahead and create basically the topographical area of where this is all going to go. And we don't need it to be so high. So today we're going to be moving in a whole bunch of stuff. Bring it up a little bit, because we're going to flatten this down just a hair. And we're going to bring this in as a recess, because we'll show you why in just a second. Now with ZBrush Core Mini, you only got one circle one sphere to work with, so we're not going to work with composite stuff on here. That's where Thingiverse is going to come into play. So we're going to do a little bit of pre-planning as we go, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So as we're going, there's going to be a combination of areas in which we're going to need to be symmetrical and not symmetrical. So for example, right here, I'm going to put a big crystal right there, do a small crystal, do a larger one, and a smaller one. So that's going to be our crystal shape area. Everything's going to come off of those spots. So we're going to bring down our little clay buildup tool here. And everything is going to start to build up off of those. I'm going to drop that shape down a little bit. Drop that shape a little bit out here. And I'm not too worried about where this is all going to sit. I'm going to smooth this stuff out right here. Do a cutout. And smooth it out. You can get really incredibly fast sculpted area out of ZBrush just with a little bit of work. Alright, so as we're building this whole area up, what I'm thinking about is how this will sit on a table area. And so, like I said, I'm just building up, and this is just the clay buildup tool. Using almost like a scumbling method for the buildup. It works really well for adding on, because I can still go through and smooth areas out if I need to, and then slowly start to build up again. And cross-hatching motions work really well. And so what I'm looking at is just this upper half. And I'll stroke through just slightly, trying to soften areas. Look at the top shape. As we try to refine that area up here where the mounds will sit, where you see the ages of growth and stuff around these crystals as they form like these rocky little alcoves where there'll be some parts that are going to be higher up. And we're not worried about where this is going to be a perfect sitting, and you'll see why, because we're gonna just make sure this looks like it's going to grow and live. Because I want this to really sit into those crystals that we're going to form. Alright, and give a little bit of attention to these areas here. Now this is only going to be 25 millimeters, so there's a lot of details going to be lost when you're working with a miniature. But it's important to work through this just a little bit and figure out where exactly you're going to land. So here we are. Right now we're at about 300,000 polygons for this. And we're going to hit this down to low. That'll help clean up a lot of the area. And then we're going to use it as a pinch tool. The pinch tool is nice because it's not smoothing as much as it tightens up a lot of these details. And so you can actually pull areas in to make it look like it's a little bit easier. I love the pinch tool for that. You've probably seen it in a couple of the other videos that I've done. And as you see, a lot of the details sort of soften. It's sort of like a smoothing, but it also pulls it in towards itself. And it works well for organic shapes and for a lot of other stuff. Alright. And just in case we do have a little bit of a craziness where it's in the center, we're going to build this guy up just a hair. And go back to pinch. Right there. And we're going to press shift and smooth this area out as before we pinch it. That simplifies out the area, but then as I pull it in, you can see how that softens that area just a hair. And we are almost done with the actual rock face. This is pretty fast. This whole area is pretty much one of those nicer areas that nicer things you can easily do as somebody who does 3D printing, but also does miniature gaming. So this is an relatively easy form of making miniatures, making terrain, and you don't have to worry about trying to buy it, because it's a lot of the stuff is going to be customized to just you. Alright, now we're going to see the framework real quick. Now if we see right here, this is the full framework. There's a lot of polygons in here. So let's go through and clean that up. There we go. So that dropped it by half. That makes it a little bit easier, because it's still going to go to a low res area, but I can know that when I do this, it's going to get a little bit simpler. Because ZBrush Core Mini, it's only going to let me, I think, extrude out to be 70, like it's either going to be 35,000 polygons. So we're going to lose a lot of this detail as we do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to then go to our export for 3D printing. What we're going to end up with is going to be a final version of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on how to make all these interesting facets, because we've already got the part from that we've made from ZBrush Core Mini. So we already have that in its whole entirety, and this is what it looks like. So there's going to be one thing I'm going to do that's just going to make it a whole lot simpler to work with. So we're going to create a hole We're just make it just slightly bigger than the base. It could be a lot bigger. But we're basically going to chop this up just a hair, just because we just don't need all of this whole piece. What we're looking for is just the way that the actual base sits. And so anything that I haven't sculpted, we're just going to take that, and group that, and it's going to take a minute, because this is somewhere close to like 30,000 hexagons, polygons. So it's going to take a second for just to get a little bit of a pop, and then it'll be cut in half. All right, so here we go. We got the whole shape just to be the natural organic shape that we're going to need, and I'm going to drag it down in height because I made it a little bit more exaggerated than what it needed to be. Because again, remember, this is going to be a base that we're just going to have this all sitting into, and I'm just going to drop this down to be right at the bottom. All right. Now, there's going to be two shapes that we're going to need. We're going to need to have an actual base, so we need to know what the actual size is. For tabletop gaming, most 1-inch squares are going to be 25.4 millimeters. But since we're not exactly being accurate, and I wanted to be able to create a little decorative base, we're just going to go a little bit smaller, and we're just going to make sure that's going to be 25 millimeters. All right, so we're going to move that guy aside because we're going to need that in a little bit. Now for the gems. The gems are going to consist of the facets, and you can make these facets any number of ways, but it consists of two angles, an upper angle and a side angle. And you can see these two parallel shapes are working pretty well here. And you can do this manually if you need to, just so you can have like 6 facets on the top, 5 on the bottom, whatever you want to do. But we're going to have a bottom facet. And I'm gonna tweak this guy out to be around 15 degrees. And then we need a top facet. And then this guy is going to be somewhere close to around 60 degrees. Now these two, I'm going to make it as a single shape, so I'm going to make it a little bit faster. So we're going to take these guys and we're going to center them up on there. And we're going to find the interaction of where these two look cool. And now for the gem itself. We're just going to start with a round shape because it's easy. Make it much bigger than the actual facet itself. I'm going to go right about to there. We're going to group these two together because we can double click in and try to see where that shape interacts. So this, as we bring it into this area here, you can see how this incorporates two of those very fast. It's not a clean shape by any means. This will make for an easy facet to make, but I think these two angles are a little bit odd. So as we double click in, this guy at 60 degrees was just a little bit too much. I want to make that facet a little bit higher. So we're going to rotate this back to right about there. And we double click out, it sort of makes it that one shape again. And this is good, because then we can see where we can land on a facet. And bringing it in, it has a decent shape. I think this needs to be a little bit more straight lined, and also back a little bit more. So we're going to go right about to there, because we don't want it to go too crazy. Alright, so now with that being done, we're going to need a couple of these guys. There we got 4, 5, 6. So move those guys around here so we can just have a pile of them to work with. These guys, when we work with a pile of facets, we're going to make sure we have one that's completely 180, because I'm going to do this as a nice semi-symmetrical shape, where the facets there are symmetrical, but the shape is not. And so as you can see, this starts to form the facet, and that's where the tip of the facet will be. And we're going to back this guy off just a hair. Alright, the next one is going to be rotated around about 60 degrees. And dragged into place. And we're looking for is to see this orange start to disappear on all the sides. The next one is going to be at around 120. And again, when we bring this in here, what we're looking for is that orange spot right there on this shape to start to get dark and disappear. Because we're building out this shape. And then this one we're going to rotate around to a negative 60 degrees. Drag it in. About there. I'm going to drag this one in at negative 120 degrees. And you go in right there. Now, if you can see, this is a big pile of mess. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole selection of these whole shapes, and we're going to group them together. And what we're going to do is it lets me see that there is no orange anywhere on there. We're going to drop it just a hair, just because you see right there's some orange. So we're going to drop this just a hair, which won't change the shape at all, but it will go ahead and make sure it does create just a nice little thing. And you can see there's the core right there, what we're going to be leaving behind. And then when we group these guys together, selecting, make sure you have the main area selected and this whole gem facet that we've created. We've then created a nice little simple gem. It's not symmetrical. It's got some interesting little facets here. It looks like it would be grown naturally. And we're going to create two different versions of this. We're going to create one that is slightly faceted, or it has a little inclusion on it. And we've seen these if you do gem work a lot, there's usually going to be like one or two inside of a geode that might have just like an extra little bit growing out of it. And so we're going to have that shape right there too. Alright, now with mine, I originally planned for 5, and then for this little mock-up I made, there are 5, but then I got that little inclusion right there. Alright, so we're going to create 3 more versions. These guys, we're going to drag these guys over here. These guys are going to be stubby. And bring them down just a little bit. Bring one down a little bit lower. We're going to drag this guy wider, just because I want that one wider. And then this one I'm going to definitely want wider as well. But I'm also going to take him and spin him around in a minute. Alright, so now we got our 5 different little gems. We've got 2 stubbies and then 3 regular ones. So we got some fun to do with this. So the first thing to do is to find out where exactly we're going to place these guys. And you can be as tall or as low as you want to be. For this one, I'm going to create one that's a little bit low on the lower side, just because I've made one that's already tall. I want to create one that looks like it's probably in the phase of being truly formed up, which is a couple odd tall ones. I'm going to take that guy right there, and we're going to spin this around. We're going to size that up just a little bit more, and rotate it over a little bit more. It's a little bit too much. There we go. So you can see There's nothing that says you need to be completely straightforward with all of this. These are the two big ones. And I'm already thinking that I want them to be just like that. These guys, this one going right here. Rotate you around. Bring you down. Bring you out. I'll twist it a little bit more. And we're just going to shorten that guy up. A little bit of odd placement, and it sits nicely into that little nest that we made. Bring it back a little bit. Right about there. I like that. That works well. Gives me a nice little shape there. This guy's going to be a little bit on the taller side. And we're going to rotate this guy around. Right about there. Drop him in. Thin him up a hair. A little bit of a rotation. And get him into place right there. And then one of my last little stubbers. Drag him in right about there. Bring him back in just a hair. Drag this guy at an angle. Nice. Do a little bit of rotation so they don't have any sort of like impacts right there. Nice. So there we go. There we have our shape. This one's definitely different than the other one. It's also a lot bigger still, so you see how big this one is compared to the other one. So what we're going to do is we have a few things we got to do to clean this guy up so it can get to this stage. First off, we got to be able to take these guys and make sure they're nice and clean bottomed. So what we got to do is take these guys and we got to group them together. And I'm going to make these guys blue so I know exactly what I'm working with, that I've changed them, and that they're now part of their thing. So you see there's the group of crystals as I moved them out of there. They're not entirely fun shaped at all. They're just all randomly placed, but they're nice and put into the group pretty well. So copy and paste this out. We need to drop this down to about 3 millimeters up. And we're just going to make it a nice big wide base, and we're going to turn it into a hole, because we're going to drag this over to where these crystals are. We're going to make sure it covers up that whole base, and then we take these two and we group them together. And as you can see, it already starts to form that mound. Now I have two ways of going. We're going to copy and paste this out. One way is we just size this guy down to being the size that it needs to be, and it'll print nicely. So we can go 25.4 and 25.4. Take the crystals, drag them down to the spot where they need to be. And you take this guy right here and make him about 8 millimeters tall, which is not huge, but it creates a nice little organic shape, and then you can stretch them right back into where they need to be. Something fun, something nice and clean. And there we go. So we got the nice little organic growth version of these guys, and we're going to drop that one right over here. The way to make it into a nice clean base, this one requires a little bit of chopping. Since this is the width of where my base needs to be, we're going to use this a lot for a lot of our shapes. So let's turn this into a color that we can truly see. So we're going to turn this, copy, paste, turn this into a brown because we'll need this later, and this into a yellow, and we're just going to move this guys out of there for the moment. So we're going to take this guy and we're going to throw it in here, and this base, this shape needs to be closely to where this needs to be. So we're going to take this guy and we're going to drop it down, so we just start to see just a subtle little edge start to pop up. Even though I need to take it and drag one section in a little bit closer, we'll do that. Then we take these two, we make them centered right there. What we're going to do now is then take this, we need to turn that into a hole, but in the wrong way. So I made a copy, made it a lot bigger, and we're going to drop it down. And we're going to drop this down about 3 millimeters down below the base, and we're going to turn that right to there. We're going to turn this into a hole, group those together, turn this into a complex Boolean shape. And then we turn this into a hole, and then we grab our base, we grab this, and we group them together. And so what we're using is, because there's no similar shape sort of Boolean, we have to basically trick it into thinking that there's a compound shape there. And give it a minute to deal with these massive amount of polygons that I threw into that area there. Drag this down proportionately. And move these guys into place. All right, and so there we have our crystalline little form here. Now this is pretty boring. This is just go straight down to an edge. Now this is fine. I mean, we can easily take these shapes here that we got. And by the way, this is only 20 sides. We definitely want to have at least 64 sides when it comes to doing this sort of stuff. So let's do some quick modifications to this circle, so it looks not much smoother as the whole end. Requires less work, and it makes it for a nice cleaner edge. Make that into a hole. Select those two things, group those together. Alright, now for our base. While this is working and trying to figure out stuff, we're going to move this around a little bit. Now this guy is literally 25 by 25. We're going to go ahead and do 26 by 26. It's not a huge difference. What this does is it creates a little bit wider of an area. So one little inset little line. So it creates for a nice little edge here. I have it for one segment, but we're going to bevel it just a hair. I'm going to copy this. We're going to paste it in place. We're going to drag this thing down right before we make it bigger, because we're going to create a base. 1 pixel, 2 pixels, or 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters right here. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. It's a 1 millimeter base height, so it's gonna be a thin little line that then comes back up again. I think I need that to be a little bit bigger. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, turn this into a hole, group those two together. When I take this, drag it all the way over here. To a rough shape. I'm also going to shorten this up just a hair. We're going to take these, select these two things, go to our center, and we're going to center these guys up real quick, just along the base. Not a huge difference, but it does create for a nice little clean edge that you can then paint different colors. So this one can easily be your gray or something like that. Your black. You can do the base brown. You can do your jewels, your gems out of here. I think Underdark would probably be more like purple gems on there. But you know, you can easily have some fun with this. And you can see how fast that was to really make. And I spent more time talking about it than I did anything else. But you know, it doesn't take that much. And you have a couple different ways that this works. Now, I will say this, is that if you look at the underside, it's just a flat base. That'll print nice and clean, and you don't have to worry about it. If you wanted to do something nice and easy, one of the things that I've done before, and I do it all the time, is this guy right here. I made an inset base. From here, I can also add some 3D text if I really needed to. But this little inset base is kind of nice because it just creates a nice little area that I don't have to worry about a complete flat part on. It also lets me, if I put some stuff underneath it to put it onto a mounting handle to paint, it grips a little bit better. So to do this, that's pretty simple. That is literally taking whichever shape we're going to do, and I'm going to do it with both of them. I'm going to take the base here. We're going to copy it. We're going to paste it. Come on. There you go. Holding Shift and Alt, you can then bring it in proportionally. I'm going to bring it in 2 millimeters. Let's do 3. I'm also going to get rid of my bevel. And we're going to turn this into a hole. Now, if you notice, this is below the deck, and then this is fine. We need this to be pretty low on here. But this guy right here should be pretty centered. But we're going to take it. We're just going to take those parts, and we're going to center them. All right. So now, if I take this and I slide this up into place, (2 millimeters), which is not a huge amount. This is only like, as you can see, it's roughly going to be right about there. There we go, right about there. If I take this and this shape right here and I group them together, it's not going to do much because there's still the base on the bottom here. So I can take this and I can shorten it up. And drag it up 1 or 2 pixels, 1 millimeter, no problem. It still sits on that base nice and cleanly. And there it is. I can also do the same thing to this natural looking guy. Drag him over here. Slide this over. Yeah, and that's pretty much centered, give or take. It doesn't really matter. And give it a second. As we wait. Alright. So as it's chopped out, as you can see, the gems are right there. That's because they're based upon where that absolute is. So we can easily take that and then drag it back up to right about there. You know, we're just going to keep that guy up just a little bit more. There we go. And we're going to shorten that. There we go. So therefore, we have our base fully done. And then we'll have, once this guy clicks over, it'll be fine. But there's two different sets of crystal bases. Yeah, two different sets of crystal bases with little cutouts. This is fully 3D printable with minimal supports, if there are any at all, and it'll probably be on the very bottom right here. So there we have our shapes in full 3D glory. They're easy enough to be printable. In a second, they'll probably group over to be the single colors for exporting out. There's going to be minimal supports, as they both all can turn into what they need to be. And I don't have to worry too much about whether it's going to be a natural base or this refined base. There's not going to be too many supports other than right there. These are fully printable, no undercuts. And if you guys have any questions or comments, just let me know. Or if you guys want to see me make something different, I can do that too. So, till next time.